When I was trying to write a cool voiceover intro for frame rates, after writing the first sentence, then rewriting it again, then rewriting some more, I realized I can't think of anything cool to say about frame rate. But still, let's talk about frame rates. Hey everyone, Rohit here. If you're an upcoming cinematographer and you're trying to find a good video on frame rates, well, you just got lucky. Today we're going to talk about frame rates and when to use which frame rate according to different situation and so many confusing things. Let's get into it. Movies are illusion. Sets recreate reality, music adds depth, and we color grade it to make it look beautiful. But at the very core, it is motion. Despite the name, whenever we're watching a movie, we are not actually seeing motion pictures. What we are actually seeing is multiple pictures. Pictures that are playing one after another and giving us the illusion of motion. Just like this.
To make us see a motion picture. Motion pictures are based on an optical illusion. Just another case where seeing is believing.
And how many pictures are playing in 1 second is called frame rate. Frame rate is expressed in FPS or frames per second. For example, this video you're watching is shot at 30 FPS and rendered at 30 FPS as well. Remember this. Why I said rendered at 30 FPS as well? We're gonna come back to this. This is very important point. So the frame rate of 30 FPS consists of 30 pictures playing in 1 second and so on for 60 FPS and 120 FPS. This is what basically every camera does when you record the video, whether it is a cinema camera, DSLR or your phone. Now I hope we are clear on frame rate. But Rohit, why we have so many frame rates to choose from? Well, this is where things get interesting.
And the Goldberg? Oh, a whole lot of birds. I don't know them all. $10?
You see, this is what the people want. Silent pictures are yesterday's news, so I figured we gotta reshoot Hell's Angels for sound.
When sound was first introduced in movies, frame rates were not high enough to use the audio technology in sync with what was playing in front of you. So they did all the sorcery and experimentation and figured out that 24 frames per second is the best frame rate for various reasons. The reason number one is it is cheaper to shoot at 24 frames per second because back then they were using actual films to shoot and films are expensive and still are even today. And the second reason is 24 frames per second captures the right amount of motion blur that we see with our normal eyes. And its massive use for years and years made it the most cinematic frame rate in this industry that we all love and adore. Which I disagree with, but that's another video. So if you want to make something cinematic, you would want to stick with 24 FPS. But still, later on filmmakers realized there could be a better way to focus the audience's attention on something particular in the shot, to make the shot much more interesting and emphasize on a certain thing in a frame. Let's watch this iconic clip from Zack Snyder's 300. This is called speed ramping. To do this, all you have to do is capture the video at high frame rates. For example, 60 FPS, 120 FPS or even 300 FPS. And then you slow it down. You slow it down in post-production as they did in 300. Every impact is slowed down to make it more impactful to the viewer, making it the most important thing in the entire frame. How much can you slow down? Again, depends upon the frame rate. Frame rate is the king here. Higher the frame rate, the slower you can slow down your footage while maintaining the clarity and smoothness. Remember when I said? For example, this video you're watching is shot at 30 FPS and rendered at 30 FPS as well. Remember this. Why I said rendered at 30 FPS as well? We're gonna come back to this. This is very important point. The reason why this is important is because capture rate and presentation rate are two different things. Capture rate means frame rate you are using to capture the video, and presentation rate means the frame rate at which the audience will see the final product. It means if you have shot a video at 60 fps and render it or present it at 30 fps, you are just using half the frames that you initially captured. This doesn't mean you slow down the footage, but you just halved your frames. But if you wanna slow it down, you can slow it down by 50% of its original speed, and the video will remain smooth and clear. But remember, your audio will also be slowed down by 50% of its original speed. Another reason to give a lot of thought before choosing frame rates for your video. This is why any type of fast motion is shot and presented at higher frame rates. For example, F1 racing, they shot and presented at 50 fps or 60 fps depending on where you live to have that less motion blur. Because if they shot it at 24 fps, all you will see is line going through the tracks, or they'll have to crank the shutter speed very high, which creates other problems. So it's not suitable for this situation. Interesting, right? Let me show you another example how filmmakers use this technique to hold your attention to the screen.
I can't get a shot!
I hope we are clear on frame rates and slow motion. But if you still have any question, let me know. Reach out to me, DM me, Instagram, tweet me, whatever the medium, I'll try to get back to you. Now if you're wondering if there is a slow motion where we decrease the speed of the clip to make it slower, could there be a fast motion where we increase the speed of the clip to match it to the 24 fps timeline or 30 fps timeline? And the answer is yes. It is called step printing, aka fast motion. Step printing means you can shoot as low as 6 fps and duplicate the frame in post to make it match the 24 fps timeline. This is most commonly used in music videos, but why would I choose to shoot at 6 fps and duplicate the frame in post production? What's the point here? The point is style. What style you are choosing, and style totally depends upon what type of movie you are making. For example, Ridley Scott used this technique in his famous movie Gladiator to dramatize this scene, giving it the effect of speed, but in fact it is very slow. There are different interpretations of this effect, but two stand out the most. First, the subject seems to detach from the world around him. Second, the subject seems to be in slow motion when everything around him is moving fast, emphasizing the action of the subject to give it a visceral effect. And this is what called step printing, aka fast motion. Now if you're thinking, what do I do with this knowledge when all I'm trying to do is make my first YouTube video? Well, to that I would suggest to shoot all of your A rolls in 24 fps or 30 fps to have the best natural motion blur. And for your B rolls, only shoot at higher fps when you are already planning to slow them down in the editing process. Otherwise, you're just filling up your storage with unnecessary frames that you don't need. Well, if you learned something today, you know what to do. But if you didn't like the video, if you didn't gain anything from the video, hit that dislike button twice, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.